What's going on, wonderful people? Video 2, man. Ooh, that sun. Let's see, can we avoid it a little bit? There we go. It's getting there. But guys, it took 20 years to bankrupt this country, from 1913 to 1933. 20 years when they put in that private bank, which we call the Federal Reserve. Uh, and the sad thing about that is, my grandmother was born in 33, but none of us were born. Hell, we wouldn't even thought about. Think about it. And before we even were born, we were made enemies of the state. Made us collateral to the banks. It's tough. So within that 20-year period, we was also enemies of the state with this new legislation that they made. It was called the War Powers Act, you guys. I've been knowing about the War Powers Act for a very long time now, probably about 8 or 9 years. The War Powers Act could declare you and I, everyone who's out there who live on this land, we became enemies of the state. The government declared war on us because they became bankrupt to the banksters. They did. They became bankrupt. So now you and I, under the 1933 War Powers Act, we are enemies and collateral as well. Basically, are you ready for it? Property of the state. Back under monarchism. What do you, ooh, snap, sorry about that. What do you really do? What do you do? It came onto the foreclosure of this country. Hell, even if you think about that, from 1913 to 1933, they had a high, then they had a low, they had the Great Depression and all that. They had all of that. Take it 20 years. 20 years under the War Powers Act, where your government declared you as property of the state, whereas collateral to the banks, and also enemies of the state. Every time a president gets in there every single year, he has to sign that act every single year. War Powers Act. War Powers Act, you guys. It took them sorry SOBs 20 years, man. 20 years to bankrupt this country. Make us enemies of the state. Make us enemy of the state. Declare us as chattel property. Right back under monarchism. See, most older people, they don't know that because, as my boyfriend and Meek say, the generations before us gave away a lot of liberty, gave away a lot of freedom just for comfort. He was so right. He was so right. Now, we wasn't even born. How is this even just in anyone's book? How is that even just? They declare war on us just because we was alive. Everything that you see going on, you guys, everything that you see going on is because they want international slavery of all of us. It's not about. Let me tell you something, man. Let me tell you. Oh my God, sorry about that. I have a bad spot. Let me tell y'all something about history, man. Every color, every sex has been enslaved. Blacks have enslaved blacks. Whites have enslaved whites. Asians have enslaved Asians. It's not about color. Nothing on this planet has never been about color. They just use that because they know people are base-minded and people really don't have no connection back to the past. They know people really don't know the past. People are not down with history. See, I've always been down with history. Even when I was in school, I was always a history buff. So once when that came, you know, if okay, let me break something down to you. You guys, when you was identified way before they started doing the colors, you was identified where you came from. Meaning, let's say if you were from Germany, right? You would be a German. If you were from Scotland, you'd be a Scotsman. If you're from England, you're English. You weren't identified by your color. You was identified by where you came from. A lot of people don't know that. It had nothing to do with color. Like I said before, every race has been enslaved. Everyone has been enslaved. We are being enslaved now with this War Powers Act. Check it out, man. War Powers Act of 1933. War Powers Act of 1933. Where your government declared war on all of us because they let this private central bank bankrupt this country within 20 years. 1913 to 1933. Check it out. Just food for thought.